Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvelous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. And welcome to our first movie review of the new year. It's a big one. It's a pretty eventful one for many reasons, both historically and just in the confines of the MCU. It is Captain America: Brave New World. Kels, how you feeling? It's been 2 days since we saw it. We saw it together. Just want to show off a little merchandise spotlight. I got my Paddington popcorn bucket, aka lunchbox. I got my Paddington cup. He's waving at the top, and that was my highlight of the night.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Dill, I'm feeling it's complicated going into this one.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. Leading up to this film being released, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it, not only in just classic MCU fashion with rewrites and reshoots and delays and all the usual business that we're
And
used
spoiling
to.
the best parts of the movie with marketing, which I'll get
R-
to.
Right,
Yeah.
right, of
Yeah.
course.
Mhm.
But there's also, I just feel like we cannot talk about this movie without talking about one of the bigger reasons why there was so much controversy around it, and it was with the inclusion of a certain character in this film,
Mhm.
Ruth, the character from the comics, Ruth Bat Seraph. Am I saying that right? They said it so many
That's
times
bets
in the
are off?
film.
Because I
Bats are
thought it was
off.
a play on,
Yes.
like, "Oh, the bets are off." I thought it was, like, a cheeky wordplay, but, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Because when she said it, I thought she said, "Ruth, the bets are off," and I was like, "Oh, that's her last name."
Oh yeah,
Anyway, not
yeah,
to
yeah,
mock
yeah.
her last name or anything, but that's what I thought it was a play on. Like, kind of how, like, the character from Incredibles 2 is, Evil Endeavor, and if you put it together, it's Evil Endeavor. So
Mm,
yeah, where it's like, "Oh, I wonder who the villain is." But yeah, a
got
lot
it,
of
got it.
controversy surrounding that character and the actress herself, Shira Haas, who I was a big fan of. For there was a limited series that came out on Netflix a few years ago. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it, but I
Is it
really like
unorthodox?
Unorthodox. Yes, I really enjoyed that series and her role in that. But obviously, as
Mhm.
like the political climate, and the stuff happening in the Middle East becomes a bit more of a focus in the news. Yes, it's been happening forever, but it's becoming much more prominent, and especially in our politics and the politicians and their responses to it, and just the overall society response to it. It is something that there's some touchy subject matter that comes with the inclusion of certain actors who do take a big political stance, whether it be your side or the other side that you will lean on, or if you're somewhere in the middle, you see both sides in some ways. Either way, it was a controversial topic for sure.
Mhm. And, you know, to be completely candid here, this was a conversation that Dill and I had off air about whether or not we even wanted to see this movie and promote it and talk about it. But I had several conversations with different people leading up to it, and ultimately we did see the film. Obviously, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But I think it was more the reason why is not to like neither one of us here are, firmly like saying that one side over the other or anything like that. But it's just because, it's important to have these difficult conversations, and it's important to, you know, voice your opinions and be heard, and, do your research, which is exactly what I did
Hmm.
going into this film, because I
Yeah.
wanted to know what people were saying. I wanted to
Hmm.
know why it was getting,
Boycotted. Yeah.
boycotted.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
there's always a reason, and whether or not you agree with that reason, it's important because if you go see something that is being boycott, you don't want to come across like you are breaking the what was it, the picket line, where you are going against what you might believe in. Now, you, of course, you might not, you might be siding with a certain side and might be like, okay, no, I'm going to go support it. But also understanding that even if you boycott something alongside something, boycotting a film for one reason could be detrimentally boycotting it for another reason. For example, I mean, this is the first black led film since the Black Panther movies, and it is Captain America, this character that's historically white. We saw it with Spider Verse, we saw it with Black Panther, and now this is like the third big movie where it's this black led superhero movie, which was another reason why, like, there's that side of like you wanting to stand for a certain group against an actress, but at the same time you boycotting the movie and you not giving it its money. now you're basically telling Marvel that you're not interested in black superheroes or black Captain America. That's not what it's saying, but that could be interpreted too. So it's like it's a double-edged
Mhm.
sword. You support something and you come across like you're supporting something else, but you don't support something and it comes across sometimes that you're not supporting something else, which is tough with media that we consume, especially when it's a movie like this that is tackling so many different political things and very clearly making commentaries on our modern politics in a way. So it's like it's a little bit of a lose lose, but also a win win in the fact that we could at least talk about it, have that conversation, put this disclaimer out there, and we do support people who are like, you know what, I just don't feel comfortable supporting that actress or seeing that movie. But at the same time, if you're like that doesn't matter to me because there's other people who worked on the movie, there's other things I want to promote like black superheroes and Harrison Ford is one of my favorite actors. Like I get that. Like I think it's a more nuanced conversation, and you shouldn't be villainized for or not for supporting it, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's where you stand as well, Kels, but
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just super tricky, and ultimately, like, because I think that it's important, like I said before, that we just, like, have conversations about everything. That
mhm,
was the main reason why I wanted to see the film, because I wanted to see, what this character stood for, and if there was something that I could ultimately, like, put my foot down and, like, say, like, "You know what, guys? Like, you were right, like, boycott it because this is what happened, and
yeah, it's
I
spreading a
don't
bad
support
message.
this,"
Yeah.
and things like that.
Now
What
the
I will
thing is,
say
yeah, go ahead. I was gonna
okay.
say, yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, at the end of the day, it's such a nothing character that like the only political thing that she does kind of say is that she's from Israel and that she was a Black Widow. But like, there's none of that commentary really makes it to the movie. And I don't know if that's a reshoot thing, if it was taken out, or if they added more stuff to make it. But like, it's one of those things that if you don't know the actress and her political beliefs, and you don't necessarily know the character that it's based on, you would not even know that this is something even that would be controversial in a way. Like I think just seeing the film, the character didn't leave an impression for me to feel one way or another anyway. So it's like all this
Right,
kind of like it's not suspense, but like kind of anticipation of like, okay, how are they going to handle this character? What are they going to say with it? Are they going to take a stance? Israel, Palestine, what are they going to do? Only for it to be like, oh, she's just kind of there, and she's part of the action, and she's kind of like guiding the characters in some ways to some places. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like it was almost worth. It was kind of I don't really know the right way to say it, but it was
almost, like,
unfulfilling,
underwhelming a little
underwhelming.
bit.
Even though I didn't want it, like I'm kind of glad it's underwhelming because now it's like not even
Yes.
a talking point we really have to dive into too much. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
it was not even. I don't even think it was worth the conversation because it's such a nothing character.
Right. So I think because of the backlash they were receiving, I think a lot of the reshoots had to do with her character. At least
Mm,
one of the things that I saw was that so if you're curious and you're on the fence about whether or not you should see the movie because of this character, like Dill and I are saying, like they do rework the character in the film as opposed to what the character is like in the comics. So the name Sabra, the superhero named Sabra, is not used at all. She's not referred to Sabra at
not even
all.
credited. Yeah.
Yeah. And instead of being in a Jewish born Israeli, or yeah, I think I said that right. But
Yeah.
apart from being an Israeli Jewish mutant in the comics is what the character is in the comics. She is actually rewritten to be Black
A widow.
Widow,
Hmm.
a widow who trained in the Red Room. So they're kind of like erasing that kind of background there. Um, and one of the things that I read specifically was that she did appear at some point in a blue and white uniform that they ended up reshooting and editing out
Hmm.
to make it kind of like less controversial. What I will say though is that I think people's biggest issue is with the actress Shira Haas,
Right.
who I did research, and I did find out that she did volunteer for the Israeli Defense Forces, and that is just where it kind of gets like really tricky for me and for a
Right.
lot of people.
Because she'll be the
So
one
I
profiting
just
in a way off of the movie,
right,
regardless of. I mean, it's tough because we're not watching it on TV, so it's not like a residual thing. But
Yeah.
and we've heard in the past like Scarlett Johansson even fighting for like, okay, if it makes a certain amount of money at the box office, we should be paid more or less, you know. So I don't really
Mhm.
know where the divide is on like whose pockets are being filled by what. But yeah, I mean that's tricky because regardless of what your political stance is, I mean obviously it's tough to watch any movie where you know that the person you're watching might not be politically in line with your way of thinking. I still see movies like Megalopolis that has John Voight in it or Shia LaBeouf, these actors that I don't really support. But I really want to see the movie because I support certain other people in the movie, like Adam Driver, and it gets tough in that way, and it is
Mhm.
tough, and there's no right or wrong really. I mean, again, you say no, you say, oh, I don't want to go see it. But then you're also doing a disservice for black superheroes. But also you go see it, and then like you're putting money in the pocket of someone that you might not necessarily support. So it is tricky no matter what. But yeah, how do you feel about all this, Kelsey? Are you feeling
Yeah.
because like again the character itself, it's not a controversial character in the movie. They edited around it and cut it down as you said. But
Yeah.
where do you stand on like the whole artist divide type conversation?
I mean, it's hard because this one is so relevant and
Right,
so
topical
like
and yeah.
it's ongoing, you know, like we still haven't reached a conclusion with what's going on in the Middle East right now, and it's just so hard to talk about, really.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to see this film because want I will say it until this is the hill that I will die on. I loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Me too.
I wanted to stand behind the people who made that project, like Anthony Mackie, like Malcolm Spellman, who wrote it. I wanted
Mm,
to support that and that momentum that was happening there, along with this movie. So that's pretty much that all I can say about that.
yeah.
As far as the actual movie went,
Yeah, I mean, we could get into it. Yeah, thank you for
yeah,
that, Kelsey, because I do think it's an important disclaimer because a lot of people were asking me too, like, are you going to see it? Are you not? I'm like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, we are Marvel podcasters, and whether or not the movies we talk about are good or are bad, we're not employed by Marvel. We're not supposed to tell you it's good because we're employed by them. We're not. We're freelance. We're on our own. Um, and we have our own political views. Other people watching us may differ, but it's important for those that feel like they're being um, put in a tough spot. It's important to talk about just because it is something that is big because you are essentially putting money in these actors' pockets, and if you disagree with the political views of one, is that a moral thing that you can overcome? And at the end of the day, it is your decision, and I think that's important. It's going to make money regardless because it's a Marvel movie. Like I don't think there's enough boycotts to really sink it. It's already doing pretty well at the box office, so that is just. I'm very glad you brought up the disclaimer though, Kels, because I know that's a topic that has been kind of overshadowing what I think is more important, which is the movie, like, and actually talking about the fact that, this is a really cool step up for Captain America and the legacy of this character. And, Harrison Ford joining the MCU, which is something I never thought I'd see before. And I don't even think he knows he's in the MCU at times. We'll get that in a
yeah.
second. But yeah, let's talk about the movie though, after that disclaimer. Thank you guys for bearing with us. What do you think of this one, Kels? What did you think as someone who loved the Falcon and Winter Soldier? Because I also very much enjoyed it for the similar reasons you did in terms of the political commentary and the commentary on race and the idea of trying to fulfill and step into the shoes of something you don't feel worthy in and the judgment you're going to receive, all that stuff. Really, really powerful. The Isaiah Bradley stuff was great as well in that show and kind of carries on here too. But what did you think of this one, Kels, in general?
Yeah, Dill. I just wish that they were no. I just wish they would get over this fear of really taking the time to flesh out the all of the stories and all of the moving parts. Because I just feel like walking away from it, it just felt like they bit off a little bit more that they could chew. Because there's a lot of moving parts to this film. There's not
Mm,
only the fact that this is obviously Sam Wilson becoming, or I guess the series was more him becoming Captain America, but this is his first time being Captain America
his
in a
test.
featured
Yeah.
film.
Hmm.
And they have that going. They have the Harrison Ford Red Hulk going on. We have John Carlo, what's his last name?
Esposito.
Yes, because I always want to
Giancarlo
say
Esposito.
Stanton
Yeah.
because I
Oh,
always want to
the
say
baseball player. Great, I
yes.
love that. I'm glad that's where
Giancarlo
mine goes first,
Esposito.
though. It's a good loyalty to have. Thank you for that.
We have another villain in this film that I didn't know was there going into, so we'll save that for our
Oh, okay.
spoiler section.
Oh,
Um
Is it a spoiler? I guess we could talk about spoilers. Yeah, yeah. Because it was
I
okay.
didn't know.
All
Was
right,
it a
cool.
was it
They kept it out
announced?
of they kept it out of the marketing, I think, because of the look, because it is a different look for the character. But they were
Okay.
credited in mostly everything. But you know what? It's
Okay.
fine. We don't have to. And they've been on red carpets and stuff. It wasn't a secret cameo, but we can save it till spoiler section because I think that that stuff is also very spoilery in terms of the
Yeah.
function of the character. So, yeah,
Yeah, and it just felt like a lot, it was very reminiscent of Winter Soldier, of Civil War, like all these different like political ramifications, all these different moving parts. I just feel like it didn't have the time to flesh out everything properly. So there
hmm
was like I would say like a good 40% of this movie, I was kind of confused. I was like,
yeah,
wait, so that guy's working for that guy, and then why is he even going after him then? And then they're having this conflict now between this country and yeah, so I was just like a little confused. And the
yeah,
reason why I want to rewatch it is not because like, oh my god, that was so good. I can't wait till it comes on Disney Plus. I'm like, I need to rewatch it because I need to understand the plot a little bit better, which
yeah.
is not great.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing. It's not even that it was confusing. It's just I think the fact that it's just overly plotty for the sake of it, and I don't think it
Mm,
has to be. I think they overcomplicated it, and I guess that would be confusing because the thing with this movie is that you know going into it, lowest audience scores, lowest cinema score, lowest Metacritic, whatever of any MCU film of all time. So everyone was like, "Oh God, like this is going to be terrible."
mm,
But we also had that with like Love and Thunder and like Eternals, and we like Eternals, and I think you like Love and Thunder a little bit more than I do. But it's one of those things where
eh,
every time that happens, we're like, "All right, here we go. The MCU is not back." But then like you watch something, and I think because my expectations were so low, I actually liked it more than
mm.
I thought I was going to because I was expecting just a complete dumpster fire. But I think the problem is the main problem, and I think this could do with the reshoots, is the actual plotting versus character building. Because I think the only character that has character building is Harrison Ford's character. I think even Anthony Mackie's character, even Sam Wilson, I think they thought, you know what, we did all the development in Falcon and Winter Soldier, so now he can just roll. But the thing is, First Avenger was setting up Steve's arc. Winter Soldier was very plotty, but that Steve Bucky relationship is such a central core thing of that movie. Civil War, it's very plotty. There's a lot going on. The Accords, all this talky, but there's also that really powerful bond with Cap and Tony, and also Cap and Bucky and Tony and Bucky. They are driven not just in the plot stakes, but in the emotional stakes. Here, the whole like I have something to prove I'm Captain America. They spent 9 episodes doing already. So here
Mhm.
it's like it's not a lot of that. It's just kind of like, all right, he's doing the job. He's almost kind of like the detective. He's the everyman. He's not growing a lot. But then at the end, it turns into I gotta prove myself. I should have taken the super soldier serum, and I'm like, wait. I thought we already went through this. So it just felt like,
Mm.
well, we need to give Sam something. And then like, okay, we'll bring in another character from another thing that you didn't know was another cameo to kind of like give the same speech that they literally gave in that show. To where I'm like, you know what? I really think they wanted to tell the story of the president going kind of mad and going red and making this political statement about that and about Isaiah Bradley more than they actually wanted to tell a Captain America story, because I really think
Mm.
Sam in the end of it all, great performance, think he does great in the action sequences, but a lot of the movie is just retreading the same themes that we've already kind of resolved. The finale of that show showed that he was ready now to be Cap. So why are we spending this whole movie not even investing in this character at all, and then when we finally do, making it the same exact plot we did the last time, where he's like, I don't know if I'm worthy of the shield. And that's the thing, in the trailer there's that great line of Harrison Ford going, you're not Steve Rogers, and he goes, you're right, I'm not. But in this one they got rid of that line. They got rid of the you're right, I'm not,
Yeah.
because I guess now Sam is having second doubts again of like, I don't think I'm worthy of the shield. This is three
Mm.
projects now: the end of Endgame, all of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now this, where Sam is having that whole dilemma of, am I worthy to hold
Mm.
the shield? You already did that. Give him something else, because now it feels like his only function is to appease the audience and say, you know what, audience, I know you're unsure about this Black Captain America, but by the end you'll be on board. But that already happened in the series. You already sold
Mhm.
us. So I don't know what this
Mhm.
film is doing, because there's no arc for Sam to go on. The person who has the most arc is probably his right hand man, who had some of the most annoying quips of the whole movie, to where I didn't care about him. But he at least has a little bit of a growth arc. He's like, I always looked up to you. I want to be you. Sam, I feel like it just there's nowhere to go with his character in this movie because they don't want to go anywhere. It's he's merely there to serve the plot, to be the one to bring Isaiah Bradley to the president's function, to then
Yeah.
invest in their story. And he's also the one to investigate the pills again for Harrison Ford's story. It's not until the end where he starts having these whole like, maybe I'm not worthy to hold the shield moment, but we already got that. So I'm like,
Mhm.
honestly, this is just a shitty Captain America movie, I think. I think it's
Mm.
honestly a pretty solid Incredible Hulk sequel. And I've been seeing a lot of like tweets out there where it's like, this is going to be the best MCU for this is the greatest MCU gift you could have if your favorite two movies are the Incredible Hulk and Eternals. And like, not even really Eternals. They address something in
Yeah.
Eternals, but really, this is an Incredible
Yeah.
Hulk sequel. And I think just instead of having the Hulk, they just have Captain America in place of like the protagonist. But like, I really don't think they give him an interesting journey at all. And the only
Yeah.
interesting stuff they give us is stuff we've already done. I just was
Yeah.
so I was so annoyed because I think he deserves better as an actor, as a character. Go somewhere else. Like it just felt like it was purely Isaiah Bradley and Thaddeus Ross's story, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But then don't advertise it as a Captain America movie because he's merely there to be the facilitator of the action, not actually having any emotional growth himself, which I thought was so frustrating.
Yeah, Dill. No, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like he didn't get like his own conflict.
No,
And he didn't have like a stable like relationship around him enough to like form a really good conflict. Like he doesn't have like a love interest in this movie that he's kind of
right?
having a back and forth with. He doesn't like him and Joaquin are just kind of like best bros and like that's the end. Like they don't really
Yeah.
have like a conflicty moment
Well,
where they can like grow from somewhere.
and like, what was the relationship between Thaddeus Ross and Falcon before that, and Sam Wilson before this? None really. There's no. That's the thing is like you're
Right.
basing this whole movie on the relationship with the president, but really like the president only had a relationship with like Bruce Banner and Steve Rogers. So like
Right.
at least give us something maybe in like Civil War or one of these other movies with Thaddeus Ross and Sam Wilson to at least understand that they have some sort of animosity. Because even at the start when they get invited to the White House, he's like, "Great, I mean it's an honor to be invited by the president." It's Isaiah Bradley who has the problem with the president. That's why I think this is
Mhm.
such a better Isaiah Bradley movie than it is a Sam Wilson movie because
Yeah.
we didn't like. There's no reason to believe that there's any wrongdoing in the relationship. The reason why there's conflict with the relationship with the president is because of something that Isaiah Bradley does, not because of something Sam Wilson does. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so tough because he's not directly involved in the actual driving conflict and resolution of the movie. He's merely there to fight and to step in when he needs to. The whole movie is the president saying, "Don't get involved, don't get involved." And honestly, if he didn't get involved, things would still play out the same way. And that's crazy
Yeah.
to me. It's just such a I think it's such a terrible Captain America movie. It's a terrible movie. I don't think so, but I think it's just not a great Captain America movie, especially the stakes of like we're gonna see him finally take the reins, and I'm like, I don't. I was
Mm.
so yeah, I was so disappointed by
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess honestly, they should have probably addressed in the beginning that Sam Wilson Falcon had like fully taken Cap's side on the whole Accords, on the Sokovia Accords. Like, I feel like if they had a moment to like address that and be like, "Oh, I know we had some issues in the past. You did, fight in Germany, like blah blah blah, or like whatever." You know what I mean? Like, or they could have started their relationship in this movie from like kind of like ground zero. So at least
hmm
then there would have been somewhere to build. Like,
yeah.
hey, it's our first time like formally meeting. Like, I want like now that like you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they kind of
Because
do that. There's a scene in the White House where he's like, "I want to bring the Avengers back," and it's one of those things where I'm like, first off, I never really understood that they split because they kind of get back together in Endgame. Like I understand that the Civil War was a split, but they kind of resolved that
yeah,
in Endgame term. Like, aren't they kind of together again?
well,
But maybe they're not. I get it. The Accords, they're not really like a unit anymore, but like they did work together in Endgame. And Cap even said Avengers Assemble. But I'm
right,
also like, that scene I think is supposed to be where you see the conflict, where you see that Sam Wilson doesn't like the president, but it's such a short scene, and I think this kind of goes back to the reshoots as well. Is I think that first like half hour they're trying to get so much exposition while also editing out a lot of stuff, but also trying to make sure that the conflict makes sense. So they got to just kind of finagle a storyline, and it just feels edited to shit. Where like I don't really know it just it really sets the groundwork poorly for what's to follow because I think the only consistent through line that probably stayed consistent from the top was the Thaddeus Ross turning into Red Hulk, which we'll talk about in a sec. But like that whole storyline felt like it had a beginning, middle, and end. But all the stuff with Falcon and Thaddeus Ross, it just didn't. Or sorry, I keep calling him Falcon. Sam Wilson and Thaddeus Ross was just like, I don't know. It just felt like far fetched, the conflict, and even then, like it was such a short scene that I was like, oh wait, so that's going to be the whole conflict of the movie. Because I didn't realize Harrison Ford was supposed to be the bad guy. Well, I guess I should have known because of the trailers what they gave away that happens to him, which is the Red Hulk.
Right.
But yeah, I
Right.
don't know. I didn't like the way it just kind of set it all up. Yeah, this movie's just so exposition heavy. We're even getting exposition in the third act. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a mess story wise, I think.
Yeah, and I think yeah, I was just watching. I was doing so much research before we started. I was like, I'm like reading Reddit. I'm reading articles. I'm like watching people's reviews on YouTube. And this one guy had pointed out like there's like 7 writers on this movie, and I think like that's kind of where we went a little wrong
Right.
because even because as he said that, I was like, oh, so then the guy from Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably like nixed and like just like bailed on the whole thing because it wasn't like the writing for me is like literally my second note in the I think we were probably like 20 minutes into the film at this point. I was taking notes every now and again on my phone.
I saw that and I was like, Kelsey, pay
Yeah.
attention. I'm like, wait, no, she's taking notes.
No, no,
Because you
I
know how I am about people on their phones, but I was like, no, she's taking notes. She's a good podcast host.
oh,
Meanwhile,
yeah.
I have to store it all in here, and you're talking now. I'm thinking of things. That's how I
Yeah,
end up
yeah,
on these really
yeah.
long tangents that everyone gets annoyed at me
Yeah.
for because I don't write things down. I can't be concise. But hey, I'm not making a movie, so I don't have to be concise.
Right,
They're
right.
making a movie,
No,
so them not being concise is a detriment.
no, yeah, my second note on my notes app is this dialogue is crazy corny. Like it was like crazy, like quippy, like classic superhero, like like responses, like whatever. And I was just like, I was like, what is getting said? You guys are saying a lot, but at the same time, like nothing at all. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the reason why I was probably so confused.
This is not the movie for the quips because honestly, like Harrison Ford has never been. He's been a little bit of a like not a jokester though. Like that's the thing. Harrison Ford kind of has a
Yeah.
little bit of a sarcasm to him, but it's a sarcasm. It's not a jokester attitude. I'm not saying he's the one
Yeah.
doing the humor, but even Anthony Mackie doesn't always seem like that type of guy in the MCU. He feels very kind of straight laced. So where like
Hmm.
and I guess that was kind of the new Falcon's function. But even then, like his stuff was so annoying. Like when he's with Isaiah Bradley and he's like, "Oh, you're an old man. You probably couldn't." And then Isaiah just like hits something and it goes flying and it's like, "Oh, he was an old man." But like we know Isaiah Bradley's gonna do that, so it's like it just
Yeah.
makes Torres kind of come across a little annoying. Same thing. Torres takes someone down. He's like, "Ah, no one was there to see it." I'm like, like I don't know. I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
humor just
Yeah.
feels so amateurish. And then the worst one,
Yeah.
which is a spoiler in terms of who says it, but I'm not going to say who it is. But there's like a motivational speech a character gives Sam toward the end of the movie, and right after that, they're like, did your speech writer write that for you?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." Like I get it. I laughed in the theater, but also I'm like, it kind of undercuts the moment a little bit, you know?
Yeah. And also they made a joke very similar to that in Winter Soldier, where Sam literally makes the joke to Cap because Cap gets on like the PA system and is like, "Hey, I know you think that you're working for Shield, but you're actually working for Hydra. Like, don't launch the things because they're going to kill a bunch of people." Obviously, he says it much more eloquently and like inspirationally, and Sam is like, "Damn, like he's like, do you write this stuff?" Or do you like do you just wing it on the fly? Like he literally makes the same joke to Steve Rogers
Yeah.
as Cap in Winter Soldier. So it was weird to repeat that joke
You know what that tells
again.
me? You know what that tells me? I mean, we write trivia questions, right? And we have our templates. We have like, okay, this how many projects has blank starred in? How many
Yeah.
who says the quote blank? Like of this, how many blank? Like we have like templates and we can always change it in. It's like, okay, Mark Ruffalo's going in. Okay, this match we're gonna put Liv Tyler in. This match we're gonna put Scarlett Johansson. That's what this feels like. It's like, okay, what jokes haven't we used in a while? Okay, so if we just
Mm,
reword it a little bit, we could use this joke again, right? We'll just say it this way. You're not writing trivia questions. You're literally writing a movie in a shared
yeah.
universe where this joke has been made. And if you're only watching the 4 Captain America movies, it was made 2 movies ago. So like, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
What I will say, I do have some positives.
yeah. We can get
And
into the positives. Yeah,
what I will say is that my first note that I wrote down was I'll just read it word for word. It's so crazy how Sam Wilson really had to fight for that shield, and they were just going to hand it over to another white man. I think I just got the point of Fat W's, aka Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Um, because I was watching him because one of my biggest takeaways was that I loved the fight sequences and the how they incorporated the shield. I love the uses of the shield. I love the uses of his wings. I thought that there was a lot of great action moments where he was able to kind of like it just seemed like he was very comfortable and he got like very,
Hmm.
familiar with the shield like, very naturally. And it kind of like made me like a little bit emotional, Dill. I was like so happy because we watched this whole transformation with him in Falcon the Winter Soldier, where he went from not deserving it to claiming it as his own, and now using all of his like great like Captain America fighting skills in like the first action sequence of this movie, and I was like. I really sat there and I was like, wow, like I'm so happy for Sam Wilson.
Hmm.
Like he's like really doing the whole Captain America thing. And I just like it just like made me think. I was like, "Oh my god, like Sam Wilson like had to fight like tooth and nail for this shield."
Yeah.
Like with like the US government, like them they wanted to like donate it to the Smithsonian. That ended up being a lie. They were so uncomfortable with Sam Wilson, a black man, having the shield that they were just willing to hand it over to this random guy who didn't know Steve Rogers, who wasn't there during Endgame Infinity War, this random fucking John Walker ass dude. And they were just like simply because like he was a white guy and he was the
Hmm.
idea of what Captain America like should be. And I was just like I was like, damn, this was the point of that series, wasn't it? And I love that series and I totally understood obviously during it, but I just like the first like seeing Sam Wilson for the first time like do the whole Captain America thing. I was just like, wow, this like justifies my love for that series like
Yeah.
tenfold.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the action is probably the strongest element of the movie.
Yeah.
Just because I mean, Captain America never had wings, so it's like this cool element where it's like he can fly now. And I think that's the whole point that a lot of people were saying is like, well, I mean, he doesn't have super soldier serum, so he's gonna be easy to beat. But I think the added bonus of the wings really does help. It gives him a little bit more of a style, a unique style. But even then, like the whole series is like, I should take it the super soldier serum. I don't want to take it. And then this movie, like, there's this
Mm,
emotional speech from another character who's like, you don't need this super soldier serum because you're you. And then the very next fight scene where he's fighting Red Hulk, he goes, I should have listened to him. I shouldn't have listened to him. I should have taken the serum. And it's played for a
yeah.
joke, but I'm like, no, the whole point is that you don't need it. So don't say you need it
Yeah.
because then the audience is gonna be like, yeah, he would have been kicking Hulk's ass if he had. I don't know. It's again, it feels like a
Yeah.
writer wrote the one scene and a different writer wrote the next scene because if they had wrote the next
Mm,
scene, they probably wouldn't have made that joke because that's the whole point of the movie. And Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. But I do agree, the fight sequences themselves are great. It's great to just see him kind of embody the role. I think that is the best part of this movie is that even though I don't think they do enough interesting stuff with Cap's character, I do think Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie in general have really stepped into the role well and really taken charge. And like now I feel like he can lead this group. I feel like he's really not to say there will be a group, we'll see with the Avengers, but like just that he is this leader that because he was always a sidekick. And even in Falcon and Winter Soldier, it felt like he was doing a lot of the growth. Bucky was doing some growth too, but he never felt like he was the lead in command until that very last episode. Here he is the lead in command for all of it, even though he's not getting emotional growth. Like I thought he did a really good job just showing that he had the like physical prowess to do it. And I think that was the most exciting to see as a Sam Wilson fan. So I agree with you there. Any other
yeah.
positives for you, Kels? Like any other? Is that it?
Um, hmm.
I will
I
say,
mean, like, go ahead.
good. I was just gonna bring
No, no,
up
no.
Harrison Ford because we haven't talked about Harrison Ford. I do think
Oh,
he's
yeah.
doing a good job in this movie. Here's the thing though.
Yes.
It's like the thing when I think it's like Salma Hayek in like Eternals is like talking about Thanos and it's like so silly because you obviously know she has no idea what Thanos is because like she's hired for this movie. She didn't watch all 26. There's a speech in the very beginning where he's talking and half the world disappeared and the celestial in the ocean, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And it's really funny because it's like Harrison Ford is
Yes,
just
yeah.
there. He's probably having fun. I mean, he gets to play a president who gets to have this like big monster transformation. He's also like kind of digging into some political commentary, which I always think is strong. Like I like how it gets political and it has this talk about race and power and all that stuff. It's a little messy and sloppily written and a lot of exposition, but I like the
Mhm.
political themes it talks about in this movie,
Mhm.
and I think he's having fun with that. But like, it's very clear he has no idea what he's talking about when he's talking about half the world blipping away and all that shit. And it was actually kind
Yeah.
of funny to me where
Yeah.
he's like adamantium, and I'm like, you don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Um, but it is fun. I think he really like made the most of that role, especially as the Red Hulk, which I know he thought was a pain to put all those little red mocap dots on, but I thought he did a good job. Like he was very intimidating and imposing in that moment. And I liked the final moments as well that his character goes through. Not to spoil what it is, but I really liked his performance. I thought he added a different flavor to it. That like William Hurt, rest in peace. I feel like if he were doing it, it would have been great. But I think because it's such a
Mhm.
mega star like Harrison Ford, he just has this gravitas that is just infectious to watch. And I do think his character of anyone was the least disserviced by the rewrites and the reshoots and all that and the exposition, because I feel like his character actually went on a journey of actually feeling like he had something to apologize for and fix and prove, but then also kind of slipping back into those tendencies that a lot of people in power have, and then actually having that monster transformation. What did you think of the Harrison Ford, Thaddeus Ross, Red Hulk, all that stuff? Did you like that?
Yes, Dill. I kind of liked how, because we had seen it in the trailer, like I kind of liked how there was like a little bit of a build up to it. I,
Mm,
I thought he's Harrison Ford. I thought that he did a great job, and I kind of liked how they obviously like addressed it right off the top, like, oh, they said, get rid of the mustache or lose the election, so they kind of embrace this new look that
yeah.
Thaddeus Ross
And
has.
also get all
And
this plastic surgery to make yourself look like Harrison Ford, not William Hurt, because a mustache is totally what gave it away.
right,
No,
right, of
it was a cheeky
course.
way of commenting on the actor change without, I don't think you needed to even draw attention to it, but it was kind of fun that like they at least tried to make a little cheeky nod to it. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Um, what did you think of the Red
Um,
Hulk?
I thought the Red Hulk looked good.
I thought it looked really good. So
I Yeah,
yeah, I think it looked
go
really
ahead.
good, and I think the rest of the budget it was not there.
Oh.
I think it was the only thing that looked good, because all the action sequences, I found out they actually filmed it in front of like cherry blossom trees and stuff like that, but you wouldn't know because it looks so green screened. And there are moments that are so clearly green screened, and so many like those
Yeah.
murky visual effects, those big explosion, fake fire, Black Widow visual effects. I really like the actual look of the creature, though. I thought Red Hulk looked really, really good.
Yeah. No, I think Red Hulk looked really good, and it was a little like short-lived the moments that we got with Red Hulk, but when you kind of like, actually think about what would happen if the president of the United States morphed into a gigantic creature and started destroying the White House, destroying the grounds around, like literally he destroys like a monument, like all this stuff. I see your face still. I know what you're thinking in your head.
Have we not seen it, Kelsey?
We're listen, I
I
just
know
mean
you're
like in
talking
a
about physical damage, but like
yes. Yes. No, but I listen, the metaphor,
a giant red monster. Why isn't he a blue monster?
yeah. Oh, and
I
also someone like commented in the movie, a character aside, like a background character was like, "Oh, since when are they red?"
I'm just
Oh,
saying.
oh,
I
and I
like
ooh,
that. I think it's good. Like take those swings, because
yes.
I think that is the best. The President Ross stuff is the best stuff in that movie, because I think it really understands what commentary it's trying to make. It shows a nuance. It doesn't just say this is what red and blue or white and black. This is a very nuanced character, because he also has those moments where you do feel bad for him, because you understand, what he wants to do versus what he has to do versus what he doesn't have to do, but he chooses to do out of cowardice. And I think they actually
Mhm.
make him a very complex figure, which actually makes it, I think,
Yeah.
more appealing than just like, oh yeah, Democrats can see this movie, Republicans can't. I think it has some nuance that maybe will help appeal to both sides. I would hope, but
Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know how many Republicans are actually going to see this movie, but it's still a really cool, I thought, a character arc for him.
And honestly, like, you know, taking into everything that we addressed at the top of this podcast, like obviously this was all in my head when we went to see the movie. And then kind of like during the movie, I was thinking to myself, I was like, this movie is almost more like it's much more like destructive to America itself rather than any other country because
Hmm.
it totally doesn't really like it, Israel isn't even mentioned at all. But to like watch like literally like the White House get destroyed and like monuments and like all of these things, like I don't know, it just like maybe something about the political climate right now. I was like, this is kind of like almost like this Captain America movie is strangely like an anti-America movie, like a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
At
And I
least
mean,
that's how I felt with like the imagery.
and there are other political leaders in the movie, the leader of France, the leader of Japan, and they all kind of like turn their
Yeah.
back and they're like, "We're not going to help you, sorry."
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a really good commentary that America's destroying itself and that they need heroes to rise up from the ashes and try to help and stand up for what's right.
Mhm.
And it deals with false imprisonment, which is really interesting, specifically incarcerated Black people. Like I think that's a really cool angle to take for this. And I know there's a lot of
Mhm.
people who are like, "Come on, it's your country, love your country," but it's like you can't if you love your country so much, you also have to acknowledge when it needs fixing. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of what this movie's getting at is like, yeah, you're proud to be Captain America, you're proud to wear that suit, but you have to understand that you want to fight for an America you're proud in. And if you're not proud in it, you can't lie to yourself and just blindly say, "Well, it's my country, so I'll just follow it blindly," because that's not helpful. And we see
Right.
that in the world right now. We see, when certain political leaders, change parties or take a stand, even though it's not in line with what they're supposed to do, it makes an impact. It really does,
Mhm.
and I think that's something to be said about that. Yeah, I think the political stuff going on is really good. It's just it's messed up with a bunch of other plot lines and other things that don't really work, and Sam gets kind of lost in the shuffle. I think the last act is the strongest because that's when you get full blown Red Hulk. That's when Sam's fully kind of embraced the role, and they're a little less quippy. But I think that last
Mhm.
act is probably where it really wins you over, which is good because it could be the other way around, where it starts off strong and it ends pretty weak. But I thought,
Mhm.
I thought it ended in a stronger way than it started. But even then, like I turned to you after the movie, I was like, that was it. Like, how long was that? Because again, the Red Hulk stuff does feel very short lived. I get it; they wanted
Yeah.
to build to it, and you only have
Yeah.
so much money. You spend it on that one really solid action sequence. And I think if we did too much Red Hulk, it would have been too much. It would have been a little overbearing. Um, what do you think though of the choice to market the Red Hulk? Because everyone knows the Red Hulk is in this movie. He's on the poster. He's on everything. But do you
Yeah.
think I think this movie could have been sold without the Red Hulk, and it would have if people didn't know the Red Hulk was coming and it built to that, and then he finally transformed into the Hulk, I think this would have gotten positive ratings. I really do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really do. I think people would have been that surprised and that much like, holy shit, that they would have given this positive reviews. I fully feel like the marketing is the reason this did not succeed as much as they hoped.
Yeah. Yeah, Dale. I mean, that has always been our complaint with these movies is that they don't bury the lead like they should. They don't like save the good stuff as for surprises. I always love a good surprise. I totally agree with you. I think that they could have buried this for sure. But then who do you market your villain to be? Because who I was excited to see, and then we like barely saw him at all was Giancarlo Esposito,
Yeah.
and it's
I,
like
I
that guy could have been anyone, but you got
right.
specifically him, so make him do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but even if the movie trailer was setting up you know what? In that case, the actor who was confirmed to be in it but not shown in the marketing, maybe you show him in the marketing. But again, I
Mm,
don't think they wanted to sell this as like a continuation of the Incredible Hulk because that
yeah,
movie didn't do
yeah.
well. But or you know what? Just market it on the action Sam because I think it's enough. It's a Captain America movie. You do the marketing, you do Sam. Maybe that one cameo of that motivational speech at the end. Maybe you show that in the trailer. That's the part you show, even though it was a
Mm,
cool cameo surprise. Maybe you show that so people are like, oh my god. Like I really think there are ways to get people invested that didn't need to show the Red Hulk because I think the Red Hulk would have been a surprise that would have just like made everyone go crazy in the theater. And I think because we knew it was coming, we're like, all right, we're finally here, but we're not like losing our minds over it because we knew it was coming. And honestly, it
yeah,
takes a lot of the suspense out when there's a whole like 5 minutes devoted to figure out what the pills are doing to the president. We know what the pills are doing to the president because we know where this movie's going because we know the Red Hulk is
yeah.
coming. So I feel like
Right,
that kind of stuff
right.
is the stuff that's undermined because again, it's all this plot with no emotional payoff because we know what's coming. So I feel like that would have made it so much better if we didn't know that was coming. And you can market the movie around other things. Show more of the Giancarlo Esposito stuff because he's in the movie. You can show a little bit more of that. Just sell it as a spy thriller. That's all you really need. Um,
Yeah.
you can even
Yeah.
sell Thaddeus Ross as the villain without showing the Red Hulk either. So I think there are ways they could have done
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he's not even like the villain. I mean, he's a villain, obviously, but he's not. I wouldn't say he's the villain. The villain is he who we'll talk about in spoilers, but
The other
um,
guy.
the other
Um,
guy.
there's also just like really weird moments for me in this uh movie deal. Like, okay, so I guess we should just transition to spoiler talk
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. We're 45 minutes. Let's put the
yeah.
spoiler ban on, just so people can. Where are they? Where's the spoiler? There it is. Boom. All right, spoilers.
Boom.
So if you are have not seen it yet, tune out. We'll come back around in like 15 20 minutes and just give our final last thoughts. But otherwise,
Yeah.
thank you for watching. But yeah, Kels, go ahead.
Um, so okay, so obviously, like the whole reason why Harrison Ford is turning into the Red Hulk is because Samuel Stearns from The Incredible Hulk, he has been kind of acting as his like genius in the shadows, like providing him intelligent information using his gamma warped brain to help, the president, whatever. He's kind of been like his prisoner, basically working in the background. And so he's been giving him pills because it's revealed that Harrison Ford's like heart was going to give out. He was having some heart complications and he needed to live. So Samuel Stern started giving him these pills that ultimately had gamma radiation in them to turn him into the Red Hulk. And so there's a couple moments throughout the film where you think the transformation could come. They actually even tease in the beginning of the film that he was kind of having like rage outbursts, like almost like a roid rage type of thing, where he was like
Hmm.
giving a press conference and all of a sudden he's like knocking the podium down and like yelling at the press. And so he kind of has these like weird outbursts. Obviously, we know now because of the pills. And there's just this moment where he's like sitting in this office, like these two guys are yelling at him to like make some decision when it comes to Japan. They're like, we need to attack Japan. And the other guy's like, no, 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 we need to do this. And Harrison Ford's like, obviously, like his head spinning. He doesn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, he raises his fist, slams it on a marble table. It cracks, and nobody in the room says anything about it or acknowledges it or looks at
Yeah.
it funny or anything. Like they all just like accept that he has this unbelievable strength that can crack marble. Like it was just there were just so many beats in this film that I felt were getting missed. Once again, back to my first point that I make is because it just felt a little rushed and I wish they would just let everything breathe. Like I
Yeah.
honestly think that this movie could have been another 20 minutes longer and it would have made it better, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and from what I heard, or from what I assumed, so there's a shot in the trailer where they're at a funeral, and that never showed in the movie. So I'm wondering where the funeral came. Was it Isaiah Bradley who gets killed? Was it Thaddeus Ross himself after the Hulk stuff? Instead of getting carried away in a stretcher, he dies. I don't know where the death came from, but I
Mm,
really think they were trying to avoid the death in the like whole White House sequence because of the recent assassination stuff, because they also edited the actual assassination out of the trailer after it aired, because they didn't want that shot of Harrison Ford getting shot in the trailer anymore. So I thought that was interesting too, because I feel like there's a lot of the stuff with Isaiah that also got edited around a little bit. I do wonder, what was cut, what was kept. Like you said, it all felt rushed. I don't even know if rushed is the word, but it just kind of
mm,
it was I think it was the edit more so. I mean, I guess that is
yeah.
rushed, but it felt like certain things that were supposed to be there were taken out, but then they didn't compensate with other stuff. They just kind of cut it, and I feel like it kind of made things disjointed and
Mm,
rushed. I think it was
yeah.
rushed because there's other stuff that was supposed to be there that's not, but instead of replacing it, they just moved on to the next thing, and that was what was rushed about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting. Like maybe Torres was supposed to die. I really don't know, because
Yeah.
there was that funeral shot. And I was just trying to think about who it could be, but maybe they didn't want to kill the president for political reasons. But I don't know. I feel like there's just so many pieces that I feel like I wish we could have kept in to really understand the full picture, because I feel like there's just so many parts, and maybe that's where a lot of the character development for Sam was. Because the Isaiah Bradley stuff is, I think, the next strongest thing next to the Red Hulk stuff. With him shooting the president, but then realizing that he was in mind control. I kind of like that idea a little bit. But again, it doesn't feel like it's really elaborated on. It feels like, okay, once we see these other prisoners get shot by these other guards, Shira Haas's character is like, okay, so Isaiah's fine, he's good. And then at the end, they're just like, all right, you're free. Like, it wasn't this big cathartic moment. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, you didn't do it, you're good to go. And I don't know, I feel like
Mm,
there were some moments lost there, even though I do think Carl Lumbly and Isaiah his stuff is really strong still in this
yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Dill. Because it went from like, oh, Isaiah Bradley didn't know what he was doing when he went to attack the president. Also, why did he have a gun on him to begin with?
Right, and
Anyway,
why they let him in the White House with a gun, like, you know what I mean,
like
like
where did
that's the
he
kind of
get
stuff.
that gun to shoot the president? Maybe he takes it off of someone near him and
Maybe.
goes for him.
Well,
We'll have
that's
to
another thing
watch the
too. The
movie again.
editing, not just cutting stuff out of the movie, but the way that the action sequences are cut, they're cool, but it's a little too much cutting, and it's the problem we've also had with a lot of MCU films, where it's like hard to gauge what's even going on because there's so many cut,
Yeah.
cut, 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 cut. You know?
Yeah. Um and it just felt like, the mystery of like what was going on was kind of solved. They like solved it immediately because they went back, they checked the cameras, they found out that people were getting like a flash of light in their face, which was, signaling the brain, the mind control of it all. And it was like, okay, so now we know it was mind control. Now we need to just, excuse me, sorry, we just need to find out like who's behind it all. You know,
And they do.
and then they do, and it's Samuel Stearns. How did you feel about the way his makeup and how they made him look in this?
I think that's from the comics as well. I think that's kind of what he looks like at a point. I didn't mind it. I think the
Yeah.
budget, you can see where it was done, where it was put in, where it wasn't. I think the makeup, and I like the glowing eye, how one of them glue,
Yeah.
one of them didn't glue. Is that the
Yeah.
word? Glue? Yeah, I guess so. Glowed.
Glowed.
But yeah, I really liked the design of it. I just the writing, it's kind of what you said. Like, it feels very just basic super villainy. He's like, I knew you would come here, and I'm in
Yeah.
control. And again, it didn't have character to it. It didn't have
Yeah.
personality, and I think that's the problem. Even with Sam, like, a lot of the personality is gone. At the end of the movie, when he's talking to Joaquin in his hospital bed, that's the most personality in the whole movie. And it's at the very
Mhm.
end. That's where they're actually like cracking jokes and just laughing with one another and just sitting and enjoying. It almost felt like two guys just talking. Like, we were almost intrusive. Like, I really like that stuff, but I feel like everything
Yeah.
else was just very stereotypical. Like, this is the way villains talk, you know. And I
Yeah.
I think that's why I like Harrison
Yeah.
Ford's character in this too, because he doesn't have that problem, but Samuel Stearns definitely does in this movie.
Yeah. I think for the I could just be dumb, but it looked like they had made his look pretty practical. Like it looked like,
Yeah, it was makeup.
prosthetics and
Yeah,
and everything, which
mhm.
was I thought was good. I think that at times it looked better than others. I think that in certain lighting it didn't come across as
Yeah.
menacing, I think, as they wanted it
In his
to.
lair, it's great, but when he's outside, when
Yes.
he's, like, doing the dial, I laughed. I
Yeah.
literally laughed in the theater, and you looked at me, and I was like, "Sorry." It was just so
Yeah, yeah,
silly. He
yeah.
was just like, "I'm gonna
Yeah.
burst your heart," and I'm like, "Okay, alright, whatever."
Right.
And
Right.
then again at the end when he's at the hospital, which was totally green screen, because they're literally, like, it looked like the most green screen of all. That scene where he's talking to Sam outside the hospital, which is just, like, so random. It's like Red
Oh,
Hulk transforms, he's just, like, standing there with him, and that's when I guess they arrest him. Because he doesn't
yeah.
die, does he, Sam Stearns? I can't even remember.
They
There's so much
arrest
going
him
on. They arrest him, yeah.
because the
Which is like,
SWAT team arrives. Oh yeah, because he gets sent to the raft.
yes, that's right.
It's called the raft,
Oh
right?
god, yeah, of course he survives. Yeah, that post-credit
Yeah.
scene. Oh
Yeah.
god. Worst
Where
post-credit scene
because
ever.
Sam Wilson has to now he has to be aware of the others that are coming, Dill. Like what the fuck does he mean by that?
We know! Like, we know there's a multiverse. He's basically like, "There's a multiverse," and it's like, yeah,
Oh,
no fucking
really?
shit. Or we know Doctor Doom maybe is coming. All we know though is, like, the
Mm.
other he says there's a lot more than just our universe. There's a lot of other worlds out there, and I'm
Oh,
like,
that's what he said?
I think so. But
I
like
thought he was talking about, like, people, and I was like, "Samuel Stearns, what people are you
but also,
connected
like,
to?"
we know there's more coming. We know Doomsday is coming. We know all these like,
Mm,
it was the most anticlimactic thing ever.
mm,
It was literally something that could have been said at the hospital that they saved for the end because they wanted people to sit through the credits. Why?
yeah,
I don't really know because they're not making more
yeah,
money depending on how many people you sit through the credits, but it's one of those things where everyone's so conditioned now, and at the end, I've heard people who docked a whole star rating on Letterboxd because of that post-credit scene, because 'cause they're like, "It was the most stupid thing ever."
yeah, yeah.
Don't blame them.
Um, we also get we also the cameo that we were hinting at throughout the duration of our
It's
opening
Bucky.
review was Bucky,
Yeah.
which I guess
Figured he
I
was
should
coming.
have seen coming, but there was a reason why I maybe thought that he wasn't going to show up because at the Golden Globes when Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford were presenting something together, Anthony Mackie was like, "Yeah, we've been having a good time filming this movie, but like we miss you, Sebastian Sam. We still love you." He like made a comment, so I was like, "Oh, so I guess they didn't shoot anything together, and Bucky's probably just not in it."
There's also a very I would not be surprised if they did not end up shooting it together.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, do they hug?
That
Do they
would be
hug?
really. I don't think so. They just stand side by side, but I've been like, that would be
I
like,
mean, I would not hold it past them. That's the problem with this movie. A lot
yeah.
of the scenes where there's two characters talking, I even asked you, I was like, is Liv Tyler? Is that really her? Or is that a deep fake?
Oh yeah.
Because
No,
I
I've
really
been
do
on.
think I think there are some people, some sequences where characters are talking where they were clearly not there the day of filming and they just tried to like sub them in. Like I really there's a lot of scenes like that that I felt that for, especially the
Liv
Sam
Tyler.
Stearns.
She's credited on IMDb as Betty Ross. So
Right, so maybe it was just a bad green screen job, but I was fully convinced. I was like, it almost doesn't look like she's reacting like a real human being. Maybe she just had work done and her face doesn't emote as well as it used to. But like, I didn't, I don't know. What do you think about this? The fact that like this is an Incredible Hulk sequel, really, at the end of the day. I mean, the main focuses are Samuel Stearns, Thaddeus Ross, and his relationship with his daughter. Like, obviously, Captain America's there, but d I just feel like this is a very misleading marketing, and, like, I'm a fan of the Hulk, so, like, whatever, but, like, it's very interesting that, like, the 2 least favorite movies amongst most fans are Eternals and Incredible Hulk, and this movie kind of follows both those mostly directly.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
I was just saying, like, how do you feel about it being so, like, tied to Incredible Hulk and Eternals, 2
Oh,
movies that are so panned, you know?
well, I will say that the adamantium reveal was kind of cool because I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, X-Men,
And it opens
Wolverine."
the door, yes, exactly. It opens the door for future stuff. And I think that's one thing this movie did well was like it at least did a good job trying to connect to other movies and build up other movies. Like it felt like it was
Yeah.
part of a series and not an individual thing. I've had problems with movies that have felt in wanted to be individual and felt too married to the MCU. Whereas this is a movie where I think it's okay to be married to the MCU and they understand that and they do embrace that because it does need to call back to a lot of things in the past. I think it either has to be one or the other. You either do something completely unique and individual, like Eternals, Black Panther, or you try hard to like really make it a piece of the puzzle. And I think this movie at least did a good job connecting it to other movies and Falcon and Winter Soldier and Incredible Hulk and Eternals. So I thought that was
Yeah.
good in terms of keeping the continuity of the series alive. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind the tie-in from to Incredible Hulk. I just wish that Sam Wilson himself had his own antagonist that was separate from the Samuel Stern stuff. Because I
Right.
just don't think that the Samuel Stern stuff was strong enough to be like, oh, this is our main, this is the leader, this is the buyer that we've been alluding to
I agree.
the whole movie. Like I just wish that there was something a bigger hurdle for Sam Wilson himself to jump over because and I also didn't know really like for more than half the time what Samuel Stearns even wanted. Because when they first encounter him in his lair, they're literally like, well, if you wanted him dead, like you could have just killed him, like at any point in
Right.
time.
Well, I
And
think that's a problem.
he's like, I don't want him dead. And I'm like, then what do you want?
Right, and I think the problem is, like, I think there is stuff in The Incredible Hulk about Sam Stearns and Thaddeus Ross directly that just, like, by now people have forgotten. So it's like, if
Yeah.
you're not gonna
Yeah.
show us that, the flashbacks, because honestly, they're not gonna show the flashbacks because it's William Hurt, that's why. But if
Right.
and
Right.
that's the thing, they don't wanna draw attention to the fact that it's a different actor, but if they were to show us a flashback, it would've made a lot more sense because I think a lot of that stuff is I wanna go back and rewatch The Incredible Hulk now just to see if that pieces
Yeah.
together things, which I guess is, like, good for them, but, like, also, like, I don't think that should have been their goal to wanna go people to go back and watch Incredible Hulk. But like I think that's where a lot of the character building for Thaddeus Ross and Samuel Stearns is. That like if you are watching this, if you've never seen Incredible Hulk, you're probably going to be lost on a lot of that. You're not going to care who Samuel Stearns is, even though we've watched Incredible Hulk. Like I didn't care with Samuel Stearns. I was like, all right, whatever. You know, like it wasn't like this huge like when the Abomination comes back in like Shang-Chi and She-Hulk, it's like, oh, that's cool because I remember that figure. He's a big Hulk. He's like the anti-Hulk. But Samuel Stearns, I'm like, oh yeah, he was a guy.
Right.
That's kind of what it feels like. It just feels anticlimactic in that way. You've used that word a
Yeah.
lot, anticlimactic, and that's what this feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um and I think that just goes back to like us wanting more for um Sam Wilson. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to see what other things I wrote down. I was also expecting Sharon Carter to make an appearance in this one
Mm,
because in the beginning of the film he did mention like, "Oh, I have a connection in the White House." And I was like, "Oh, he's obviously referring to Sharon Carter." But I
yeah.
guess she's not she's probably showing up in Thunderbolts at some point. So
Yeah.
that's probably where they're saving her.
I feel like she could have been the Shira Haas figure, right? Because like I know she's like the power broker and stuff, but like that could have been
Yeah.
where you just use that character. Because like again, these side characters where it's like she's the aide to the president, and then there's also that black woman who I can't even remember her name because she's so insignificant in this movie. But like I thought they might have set up a romance with her and Sam, but no, she's just kind of there.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
that's the thing is these characters are just there. Fill them with people we are actually emotionally invested in. Fill them with Sharon Carter. Fill them with maybe some other figures of the MCU. Maybe John Walker has a part to play in some of this. Like, have these actual figures, there that we recognize that we can at least pull
Yeah.
from to have some. Because that's the thing. The gift that Marvel has that we know so many characters at this point that you can use these characters to just fill roles. But then when you don't fill them with roles, it's like, then they just become very nonsense, very forgettable, bland characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly thinking, Dill, what I want to know is now who is going to be the president in the MCU
I don't know.
universe, which is
Yeah.
redundant, I know. But what I'm thinking, because now I'm thinking about how Thunderbolts is kind of deal with like the aftermath of all of this, with like because Julia Louis Dreyfus' character, Madam Hydra, which is not her name, but it's Val. Let's just call her
Hmm.
Val.
Yeah.
That like directly works with the government. So I'm just like
Hmm.
wondering like what
Does she become the
because they're gonna
president?
have to. So that's what
Or
I want to happen. That's what
well,
I want to
did
happen.
you did you catch a certain line that Shira Haas's character said in this after
No,
she
I
saw
didn't.
Bucky leave the room? She said, "Future congressman?
Yeah, yeah,
Could
yeah,
Bucky
yeah,
become the president?" Because
yeah.
then that also
I mean,
makes
like,
sense with the joke that he's like 180 years old. Because then it'd
yeah,
be a
yeah,
comment on the fact that our presidents are way too old.
yeah.
Like
That'd be
honestly,
really
that'd
funny.
be kind of fun if this is setting up Bucky to be the president. But I don't know if he would
Yeah,
want to do it. He's a little too soft spoken, I think. But
yeah. I don't know. I
maybe we
don't
need
know
that.
if I just would love I would just love the idea of first of all a woman being the president, and
Hmm.
also a woman as complicated as Val, because we
Yeah.
don't really know where she stands. Really, like which way does she swing? Is she a
I mean,
villain? Is she an antagonist? Is
her hair is
she
dark with a white
morally
streak.
gray? Okay, so you're saying
It's a little
probably a
Tulsi
bad
like, but
p-
I don't know.
bad guy.
I
all,
don't
all
know.
signs point
I
to
mean, I don't know. I
villain.
don't know. I don't know. I
I
yeah.
just think.
Has the president ever been an important part aside from Iron Man 3 though? How often do we even like get the president in this series?
Well, I'm just saying they made him a big deal in this movie. So I'm
Right,
just
true.
like wondering where we go from here because Thaddeus Ross is in the raft. He's in
Yeah.
prison. Like he
But he's
stepped
still technically
down.
president, no? Oh no, he stepped down, you're right.
No, he
All right.
can't be president. He's in jail. Oh my god.
Well,
So
I mean
this is hitting too close to home now.
But I think that's what I like about this movie though, is it literally at the end is saying if you are a criminal, you should be in jail, not the president.
Right.
Bum, bum, the more you know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I
They-
just I like that about this movie. I wish it was just all that. Like, I wish they didn't like have
yeah.
shitty green screen, shitty effects, and rushed plot lines and exposition heavy and making your main character kind of a supporting character in the end of the day. Like, I wish they'd just done better. This is such a nothing movie. Like, this isn't even in the bottom of my ranking because I'm like passionately against Love and Thunder. Like, I passionately hate some movies. This one, I'm like,
Mm,
it was fine.
eh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because listen, I think that when it came to Sam's first movie, how the focus was not 100% on him like is crazy. Cuz I just feel like the first like, the origins, like Steve's first movie is Captain America, the first Avenger, is like very like, it's kitschy because it like takes place in the 40s. It has his whole kind of like back and forth with Peggy. It's all about him becoming who he is as a person. And I think that they were relying too much on Falcon the Winter Soldier to do that for Sam, when it's like, no, you had a lot of people not watch the shows. You have to give him some character development, and you have to give him a very strong storyline with strong relationships in order for people to care about this character. And all this other nonsense you could have included in a future Captain America film, that the way they did for Steve. Like, they gave Steve a pretty like straightforward storyline in his first movie. Winter Soldier is when it got complicated, is when Hydra came into it all, is when
Yeah.
there was all these like political like,
Yeah.
crossfires and
But it was
everything.
still centered on him because of the Bucky of it all, because it was dealing
Right.
with that relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
So I just think for Sam Wilson's first Captain America movie, I don't think that this is like the storyline that they should have went with.
Mhm.
I think
And
that
you know,
this feels like a second movie to me.
yeah, and you know what? The fact that Falcon and Winter Soldier is not a lot of people watched it, they also probably have no idea who Isaiah Bradley is. They're probably watching this like, oh, is that his dad? Like, I really do think
Yeah.
like that relationship, if you don't really
Mm.
understand it, like just give it a little bit, just give us a scene of him being like, I mean, you were Captain America once, right? Like, I think, you know what? The thing that might have made it more of a Sam story, don't, because they cracked the case that Isaiah didn't actually assassinate the president very early on. If this whole movie had been Sam having doubts, shit, did my friend really just try to assassinate the president? Is he being mind controlled? Oh shit. And then at the end, you crack, like the beginning of the third act is when you crack the code. No, he's under mind control, Sam. Oh great, let's take out the villain. Because the thing is, they crack that code the very next scene where
Yes.
Torres is going
Yes.
through the computer. He's like, look, the phone is flashing. And I think that's the
Hmm.
thing, is like that's the mystery. And then like that whole plot line, because that's the most emotional investment Sam has in the movie, is when Isaiah is behind bars, because he's like, I know you didn't do it. I know it in my soul. I just have to find a way to prove it. And then the very next scene, he proves it. Then it's like, oh, so you knew Thunderbolt Ross. You knew it wasn't Isaiah. And that's the thing, is like that whole suspense, like that arc is done in 2 scenes. And I feel like that could have been something that could have been elongated maybe. Maybe you have this moral dilemma in
Yes.
Sam. Is he believing his friend, or is he going to believe the president who's trying to poison his mind and make him think that he was really shot at by his, but again, this could have been something with rewrites and reshoots that like they didn't want to dive into that for political reasons and current events, because the first trailer
Yeah.
for this was right before the assassination attempt of Trump, and then right afterwards is when they edited the trailer to take out the shot of Isaiah shooting him. So I don't
Mm.
know. I just
Hmm.
felt like I think they were trying to make a political statement, but also dance around some controversial topics.
Yeah.
But in doing so, it's kind of a hodgepodge. It doesn't feel like it has a consistent
Right.
character vision. You know?
Because like at this point, it's like it's almost worse when they don't lean in one direction or the other. I just wish that they really committed to some things, and said, made choices kind of like with their whole chest. I'm
Hmm.
glad that they didn't. I'm glad that they took a step back and reevaluated when it came to Ruth's character. I think that that
Yeah.
was a smart choice. Um, Using this actress is like, that's a whole other conversation. Because I feel like you could have picked someone who maybe didn't volunteer
Yeah,
to.
I mean, another thing too is I don't think we'll see her again. I think that's just gonna be the
Right.
simple thing of it all. And like, if you are,
Maybe.
Israeli
Probably
and
not.
you're like, oh, great Jewish representation, but it's also like, it's not as easy as that either. It's not like, oh, great, we have Jewish representation. I think it's a lot deeper than that. But I also, I don't think getting rid of this character is gonna feel like erasing Jewish history in a way. I think in any way,
Right.
it's gonna kind of avoid the conflict of, because your actor's controversial. Don't double down. Just move on.
Yeah.
Mm.
But when it came to the commentary aspects of America and Captain America and the incarceration of Isaiah Bradley, I wish they leaned more into that, the
Yeah.
way that they did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I just wish they let Malcolm Spellman do his thing and write this movie. I think that it would have been much better if they just like let him pop off, because
You know
he
what?
had some of the best writing in that show, in the
And
entire MCU.
I agree. And you know what you do? Don't make a series. Make Falcon and the Winter Soldier a movie Make it a long
Mhm.
movie so you can get everything in there. Cut the whole plot line with the Carly Morgenthau stuff and make it only John Walker, Isaiah Bradley, Falcon, and then like you don't even need to do the Bucky stuff. You don't even need to do Winter Soldier. Just do like the Falcon, and make a movie about that, about him reckoning with the Shield by talking to Isaiah, going through the stuff with John Walker. By the end, he's confident enough. He takes the Shield. He conquers John Walker. The end.
Mhm.
Then this movie, he's already established. Now you can deal with the presidential storyline because that's the thing with Winter Soldier. If we had been introduced to Cap with Winter Soldier, it would have been a lot. Give us a movie to invest in him. And I know they gave us a show, but give us a movie of it because then, that's kind of where most audiences can then get on board with him. And then they're like, okay, I'll watch whatever this guy's in. But the problem is not a lot of people have done the homework of watching the show. So like all this stuff just feels so rushed and crammed and like who's Isaiah and what is their relationship? And wait, does he want the shield? Does he not? Is he confident in himself? Where did he get these wings and this new suit from? Who's this Torres
Mhm.
guy? It relies on and that's the problem we've been reaching with a lot of these shows is like, now it's like you have to watch these shows to understand the movies, and it's gonna come a point where it just gets impossible for people who aren't us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we already started to see it a little bit with Multiverse of Madness. Like it really sucks that like people have to do 8 hours of homework to understand a movie, and
Right.
that's why they should stand alone, even though it is so connected to other things. And this movie I don't think does. So sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah.
Anything else, Kels, on this one? I know we've talked a lot about this. This is one of our longer reviews for movies, but
Yeah.
there is a lot to
I
talk
mean,
about.
I think everything, I said everything that I wanted to say. I hope people respect our decision in seeing this
Mhm,
film because you know my biggest takeaway is been and kind of like my mantra for the past like eight 8 years has been I'm trying to be as educated as possible and I'm trying to um like I always think that there's room to grow and I always want to be corrected if I do something wrong or say something wrong and
mhm.
I open the criticism if there is any to be had because I want to constantly evolve and become a better person. So if there's anything that people disagreed with us on in this
Yeah,
review, I want to hear, I welcome it. I
yeah.
encourage it.
I love that sentimentality. That's a great way to end. And again, like I'm just happy that we have another black led superhero movie. I think that's big. And I think, honestly, if anything, my support of this, I hope, goes to showing Marvel that we want more of Sam as Cap. And honestly, I would be fine with more Red Hulk. But like that should be it. It shouldn't be saying like we want more of this actor or we want more of this
Yeah.
like Samuel Stearns. We want more Incredible Hulk movies. Like I don't want that. But I would like an Incredible Hulk movie as long as it's like a really good one with Mark Ruffalo, but or Tatiana Maslany. But
Hmm.
like take this as like we want more Cap. We want more Black Cap. But like give him a great movie now. But I hope, I hope this continues to make money because I think it is. I think it's still doing pretty well at the box office because it is a Captain America movie at the end of the day. But
Right.
that is our review there. Getting rid of the spoilers, Kels. Last thoughts, last score. What would you give this out of 10?
I am settling on a solid 6 out of 10 for this one.
Okay. Yeah, you definitely liked it a little more than me. I gave it a 4 out of 10. But like that's what I gave Deadpool. That's what I gave like some of the movies around this time. They're batting around the 3, 4, 5 range. So this is
Yeah.
not a bad thing. I mean, not everything's going to be the Eternals, and a lot of people hate that movie. So what do I know? I saw someone make a review where it's like, oh, it's way better than Eternals, but it's not as good as Incredible Hulk, and I'm like, oh, like what does that say about me? Because I don't love the Incredible Hulk, but I love Eternal. So am I gonna love this movie? I think that's the thing is like people are trying to use movies to compare it to, and I'm like, honestly,
Mm.
at this point, the MCU varies by person. I don't think there's any way you could be like you're gonna love it because you love this. Because I heard someone say that Guardians 2 is the worst MCU movie the other day, and I'm like, how?
That's
So
crazy.
yeah,
That's
so
a
I
hot
just
take.
yeah, honestly, just enjoy it. Hope you enjoy it. Go with low expectations because I think if you have low expectations, it's gonna get better. If somehow you don't know about Red Hulk, good on you. You probably do now because I just said that. But
Yeah.
I just might want to stop watching Marvel trailers because I just don't want to know. I like the surprise. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Thankfully, Thunderbolts doesn't have a lot of that in the marketing. I don't think,
I'm
unless we
excited for
watch it.
Thunderbolts.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I am too. Fantastic Four is the main one though that I'm like so
Yeah.
hyped for. That like
Yeah.
you when the trailer came on the movie and you're like, I wish we were watching that. I was like, yeah,
No,
me too.
I did say that.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
yeah. All right, Kels, where can they find you out there?
Oh, and I made this comment to Dylan in the theater as well, but when Bucky came on screen, there was a kid behind us who went, Bucky, and it was so cute.
Yeah. There's also a
Anyway,
guy who like did he
oh my
barf or
god.
belch or like laugh really loud and then hack up a lung or something or
He was making comments the entire film. Like something would happen and he'd be like, "Oh yeah," like it. I don't know. I don't know what was going on.
I
It was
love it.
weird.
I don't care. I love it.
Anyway, you can find me on Letterboxd. I'm about to put in my review for Captain America: Brave New World right now. At Kelsey A. Kilp.
Yes, and you can find me at the Dill Pickle Movie Network here, and then Dylan Randazzo on social media. I'm waving goodbye. My little Paddington's waving goodbye. And you guys have a great week. And next week, we're going to wrap up Spider-Man. A lot of episodes, but we're going to just kind of rapid fire finish that series. I will say right now, this is a little bit of a big announcement, not telling you why yet, because there's still a few things I have to do, have to sign, have to get situated. But Marvel-ous Movie Mondays is going to go through a little bit of a change. We're going to be going starting in March. We're going to be going to 2 episodes a month, and then later on in the year it might even go down to 1. We'll see. We're going to try to keep up our output as much as we can, but there's a big career change in my life that I'm going to be a little bit busier. The good news is I will be free Monday mornings, so we can still do this show, but for the sake of my job and my busy schedule, I think we're only going to go down to 2 episodes a month, and then trivia will not be part of that 2 episodes a month. Trivia is going to be whenever Kelsey can fit it in while I'm gone, but trivia is hopefully going to be there once a month, so technically you'll get 3 a month, but in terms of our podcast, the 2 of us will be giving you 2 podcasts a month. So usually that'll probably be like a series or half a series and then the other half of the series another episode, or if there's a movie it'll be like a movie and then half the series. So don't expect a lot of like the one-off kind of like side episodes. It'll be mostly focused on stuff we're getting, like Daredevil and Fantastic Four and all those things, but we are going to be doing reviews for those if we can. And yeah, so it's going to go down to 2 episodes a month. So it's not going to be weekly, but it's still going to be more than you get a lot of other shows. So twice a month, starting in March. So next week will be all of the Spider-Man wrap up, and then we'll tell you what our 2 episodes in March will be. So we still have next week, and then we're going to go on a 2-month schedule. We promise it's going to be worth it. We will not let you hang in. We will not leave you hanging, and I promise it's all good things, good reasonings. So thank you guys so much for watching this show. We'll see you throughout the year, and we're very excited for Spider-Man next week. We're going to wrap up that series on Disney Plus. Otherwise, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.